Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining my session. As Tambra said, I'm Robin Moody, and I am from Really Great Reading. And I'm going to just share a little bit with you today about how we can demystify multisyllabic words for our students. Now, I just want to mention the handouts and the resources have been placed in the chat if you haven't gotten them off the Symposium webpage yet. And in those resources on the samples handout, there are some QR codes. There's also a QR code at the bottom of that sheet where you can certainly reach out to me. And I believe my email is also noted on the handout. Okay. So today we're going to go through a pretty quick hour. We're going to discuss those teachable skills that promote strong decoding and fluent reading. We're going to talk about a functional strategy that can help students read and spell multisyllabic words across all 6 syllable types. We will not get to all 6, but we will get through a few of them. We're going to talk about the scope and sequence. You'll kind of see the process of where you start and what those foundational pieces are so you can apply these skills, this strategy to multisyllabic words for both decoding and for spelling. We're going to start with a little warm-up, okay? So I'm going to start by asking you to read some words out loud. Yes, wherever you are, virtually, in your living room, in your kitchen, wherever you are, I'm going to ask you to just read some words out loud. So I'm going to flash 3 words, and when I flash them, just say them out loud as quickly as possible. Ready? Here we go. So I suspect that you were able to say each of those words the moment they showed on the screen. And I'm fairly certain that you haven't seen these words before because they're nonsense words, right? But there's a high likelihood that we all pronounce these words the same. Bibble, Breinta, quintuplet. How does that happen? How do we all know to read these unfamiliar words and arrive at that same pronunciation? Well, let's examine them. Why didn't we say Bible for this first word? How did you know that this first I should be short? And what about the E at the end of the word? How did you know that that E wasn't making a long or short vowel sound? Let's look at the second word. This one has a vowel team. How did you know how to pronounce that vowel team? When I was younger, my teacher taught me that when 2 vowels go a-walkin', the first one does the talking. It says its name. I'm not a singer by any means. So why didn't we say brota? How do you know that that vowel team would say oi? What about at the end of the word? How did you know to flex that A to a schwa? Did you actually say, oh, I should flex this to a schwa? No, you probably just produced that correct pronunciation. Let's look at the last word. So this is a 3-syllable multisyllabic word. How did you know how many syllables would be in quintuplet? How did you know where to break the syllables? Did you confuse this word with a similar looking word like quintuplet? No, you had correct pronunciation the first time through. So how does this happen? Well, as skilled readers, we use our knowledge of words and our established foundational literacy skills to accurately and effortlessly read these new unfamiliar words because we reapply patterns that we've learned, that we've stored. And it almost seems magical because when I ask you to explain it, it's hard to explain. So let's talk about these foundational skills. We know the evidence is clear through the science of reading research, the knowledge and experience that is required to accurately read unknown words. And these are those foundational literacy skills: phonemic awareness, letter knowledge, the alphabetic principle, phonics knowledge, and syllable types. Now, the key about these foundational literacy skills is that they are teachable skills. These are the teachable skills that actually promote strong decoding and fluent reading. And this is where all of you as teachers come into play, because at the heart of this idea is that learning to read is not a natural process. Learning to speak is a natural process. In your native language, it happens naturally, but learning to read takes teaching. But the good news is, if you're sitting there and you're working with kids in those upper grades that are struggling readers, it is never too late to teach them how to read. There's never a time we can't go back and teach these skills so our students can become strong decoders. Our English language is a code that has to be explicitly taught. So children learn what all these squiggly lines and how all these squiggly lines map to speech sounds. So we're going to start with a glossary of terms and principles. Now, I know if you've been teaching younger grades or you're a seasoned literacy professional, you'll probably be familiar with many of these terms. But I want to ensure that as we go through this hour, that we all have a common understanding of these terms. So I'm going to briefly go over some basic terms and principles that build the foundation for reading multisyllabic words, and then we're going to jump into those more complex terms. So the first two terms I want to talk about are phonemes and graphemes. So let's start with the premise that all words are made up of a series of speech sounds. So in linguistic terms, we call these speech sounds phonemes. By definition, a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound in a spoken word. Consider the word chip, like I ate a chocolate chip cookie for breakfast. Chip. Ch, I, chip. So I hear three speech sounds or phonemes. So I'm going to use color tiles to represent my phonemes and bring them to life. So I've got ch, I, p. Now, each phoneme is then related to a letter or a letter combination that spells that sound. Now, in this case, the first phoneme ch is spelled with CH. That next phoneme I, our short I phoneme, is spelled with the letter I, and our last phoneme p is spelled with the letter P. Now, whenever we see a letter or combination of letters that is distinctly related to a phoneme, we'll call that a grapheme. So by definition, that grapheme is a letter or combination of letters that spells a phoneme. So we can say that the word chip has 3 phonemes and 3 graphemes. And that's because in English, there's a one-to-one relationship between the number of phonemes that we hear and the number of graphemes that we see. So in the word chip, we observe both 3 phonemes and 3 graphemes. So here's how I would say this to my students. The first phoneme in chip is ch. We spell ch with the grapheme ch. And to push it a little further, the grapheme ch is a digraph. And a digraph is 2 letters together that spell one speech sound. So we're getting very explicit with the language that we use to teach our kids. Now, there are 6 common digraphs in English. So let's think about a word like shock. Like I got a shock from a chord. I'm going to stretch it. Sh, a, k, shock. Shock has 3 phonemes. I'm going to put up my 3 color tiles. Then I'm going to use I'm going to connect each of those color tiles to the grapheme. So we have sh, spelled with sh, a, spelled with o, and k, spelled with ck. Now, this word has 3 phonemes and 3 graphemes. And this word gives us a digraph in the initial position and a digraph in the final position. So even though it has 5 letters, it's best understood as a series of 3 phonemes and 3 graphemes. And it should be noted as we look at this digraph over here, this PH, this has a much lower frequency in words. So for your K to students, they won't see a lot of words with that digraph PH until you get higher up into your grade levels. So just a little review here. A grapheme is that letter or combination of letters that spells a phoneme. And a grapheme can be 2, 3, or 4 letters. So let's look at the word weight. Like I stepped on the scale to check my weight. Weight. W-A-T, weight. I have 3 phonemes. Now the first phoneme is spelled with a single letter, grapheme. My last phoneme is spelled with a single letter grapheme. It's that middle phoneme spelled with a 4-letter grapheme, E-I-G-H, that is probably one of the most complex graphemes in our code. The final grapheme, if we take a look at this word weight and we change it to eighth, now we have 6 letters, we have 2 phonemes and 2 graphemes, and now we have a digraph. So we want our kids to see those patterns. So our students need to understand that the grapheme TH produces 1 phoneme. And a 4-letter grapheme like EIGH also produces 1 phoneme. Let's take a look at this word now as 8. My grandson turned 8 years old. We want our students to see this word as 2 phonemes and 2 graphemes. So going back to the word weight, many students will grasp the easier phonics concepts, like spelling patterns in words like chip or shock. However, when they get to more complex parts of the code, like EIGH spelling A, they don't understand those additional complexities. And this is a simplified model of looking at the word wait. We don't want our kids to be looking at 6 letters when they can look at 3 distinct spellings linked to 3 distinct sounds. If our students can see these patterns more efficiently, it can really lead to better reading, better spelling, and greater automaticity. So, we've just explored phoneme-grapheme relationships in single-syllable words. Now we're going to see how our students can leverage that same understanding to read longer words by exploring types of syllables in English. So once our students have established some key ideas around phoneme and grapheme relationships, we can really begin teaching them another layer of structure, and that's syllable types. So consider that the English language has 1.6 million words, maybe more. Nobody knows the exact number of words because it's constantly changing. We're adding new words all the time. Some old words become obsolete. Some of these words come from technology like Googled or hashtag or emoji. I certainly didn't run around the playground saying, hashtag and emoji. It just wasn't a thing when I was a child. And also words from like wit or humor, like hangry or mansplain or textpectation. So, that feeling that you get when you're anticipating a text coming to you. So we're always looking and new words are happening. So we have to prepare our kids to be able to read new words. We can largely categorize each syllable in a word as having a type or a flavor. So it turns out that English has only 6 major types or flavors or syllables. So let's look at this word, sunscreen. We could identify the first syllable in this word as being a closed syllable and the second syllable being a vowel theme. So we have 6 flavors, and here they are. So you see next to each one as an example. So we have vowel themes, vowel consonant E, consonant LE, closed, R controlled, and open. This is not the order you teach them in. This is labeled like this because of the acronym Velcro, because Velcro is sticky and we want our kids to remember what these syllable types are. Now, not all syllable types occur with the same level of frequency in our English code. There's one that dominates our language, and that is the closed syllables. Closed syllables make up approximately 53% of all English syllables that you're going to encounter as you read and spell. And closed syllables are really something that are very teachable, very digestible by a wide spectrum of students. So let's see, a closed syllable is something you can visually recognize. It is a syllable with one vowel followed by one or more consonants. Consider words like nap, wish, notch, and up. They all follow the same pattern. They have one vowel followed by one or more consonants. There's a lot of power in this. When we see this pattern, one of the things that we can do is predict the vowel phoneme. In a closed syllable, the vowel phoneme is almost always short. If we want our students to be automatic with their fluency, it all starts with understanding patterns like this. So consider the word hi. It's not closed, right? It's a single vowel letter, but there's no consonant after it, so it's not closed. Consider the word hit. The vowel is followed by one or more consonants, so it's closed. Our vowel phoneme is going to be short. Now, if I take the word hit, add a couple consonants, I still have a closed syllable because it's still one vowel followed by one or more consonants, and our vowel phoneme is going to be short. I can also remove that first consonant, and I still have a closed syllable. So if I study the vowel sounds in each of these words, in the word hi, we have a long vowel sound. In the word hit, hitch, and itch, we have a short vowel sound. It's the proximity of that consonant next to that vowel that creates that short vowel phoneme. This is unique to the English code. There are no closed syllables in any other world languages. So if we want our students to be automatic with their fluency, it starts with understanding patterns like this. So gaining automaticity with closed syllables is important because most academic words are just a series of closed syllables. Let's look at some examples. Publish, publish. Epic, epic. Wisconsin, transatlantic. They're all just a series of closed syllables. So let's think of for a moment about the simplicity that really does exist in our language. The word cat is a simple CVC word. Now let's look at the word Wisconsin. Couldn't we say that this word is made up of just a simple consonant, vowel, consonant, then another consonant, vowel, consonant, and another consonant, vowel, consonant word? Yeah. So in reality, isn't this just like reading cat, cat, cat? So much power there. And being able to say to a struggling reader, you can read cat, right? Sure, then you can read Wisconsin. It's just like reading cat, cat, cat. We just have to give them a strategy to get there. And we're going to get to that. But I want to just switch gears a little bit and talk about phonemic awareness for a moment, because this is such an important foundational piece. So let's drill down some ideas about phonemic awareness and navigate into phoneme proficiency. So we have 44 phonemes in the English language. 18 of them are vowel phonemes. So one of the most important things that we can do with these vowel phonemes is be able to isolate them and categorize them. The vowel phonemes are much harder to master than the consonant phonemes. So what I'm going to show you next is a very quick and reliable way to ensure that your kids know their short and long vowel sounds. So using this method and an anchor chart like this, you can help your students develop mastery and fluency with those vowel phonemes. So let's start with short vowels. So for each short vowel phoneme, we're going to have a guide word and emotion. And I'm sure that all of you that are teaching your youngsters, you have some kind of motions and icons and guide words for your teaching. So what we use here at Really Great Reading is we're going to use a and connect it to apple. So we have our kids put out their hand, pretend they're holding an apple. So everyone do this. So, you've all been sitting there for a little while. Let's wake up your hands. So you're going to put your hand out and you're going to pretend you're holding an apple in your hand, and you're going to bring it across your body and you're going to go, ah. So when I say, what's the short vowel phoneme, your students would say, eh. So is the short E phoneme, clearly the first phoneme in the word edge. So we take two fingers, everyone take two fingers, and you're going to pretend you're running them across the edge of a desk, and you're going to say, eh. I is the short I phoneme, clearly the first phoneme in the word itch. So put out one arm, and you're going to bring the other hand across the midline. You're going to go, eh, like you're scratching an itch. Ah is the short O phoneme, clearly the first phoneme in the word octopus. So for our little youngsters, we say there's like an octopus swimming above you in the ocean. They go, oh. Is the short U phoneme, clearly the first phoneme in the word up. So you're going to actually take a finger and you're going to start at your right hip and you're going to cross the midline. You're going to go up and you're going to go, Notice these are big motions, crossing the midline. There's a lot of brain research about crossing that midline. So show me, I know you can't show me, but I have two volunteers here that I can see. So I'm hoping everyone's doing this at home. And we're going to go, what's the short, show me short A. Short E, short I, short O, and short U, Awesome, great job. Now, what we're going to do for the long vowel phonemes is we're just going to air write. It's still going to be multisensory, but we're going to make big motions. We're going to air write that lowercase letter. So for long A, name of the letter, we're going to go A, nice and big. E, nice and big. I, air right in the air. O, and then U. So when you're doing this with your kids, and hopefully I was doing that so that it looked directionality correct for you, you want to make sure that kids are seeing it correctly. So those are your short and your long vowels. Now there are 7 additional vowel phonemes. So there's 3 R-controlled vowel phonemes, and I'm not going to have you do all of these, but this would be like or. So you pretend you're holding a plate with a fork and you go or, because that's the middle phoneme in fork. R is the middle phoneme in barn. So we pretend we are like a little barn top. R. And then is like a bird's wings. Now remember, these are just the phonemes. These are not the graphemes. These are the phonemes, right? So everyone show me or, show me R, and show me Beautiful. So now, there are also 4 vowel phonemes that are not long, they're not short, they're not R-controlled, so we call them other vowels. So we have oo as in ooze. So oo is the first phoneme in the word ooze, and for the motion, I'm going to extend my hand and pretend like I have that green slime. If you've ever read the book Bartholomew and the Oobleck, like ooh, and it's oozing down. Everyone do that. Ooh. And then the oi is the first phoneme in oink, so a little pig nose. Oi. Ow is the first phoneme in ouch, so we just pretend that we have a little Band-Aid on the edge of our hand, and we go ow. And then is like reading a book, so we just take our hands, we open it, book. Awesome. Okay, so those are our vowel phonemes. Now, we're going to link these phonemes to graphemes. So let's consider the word stop. I stretch it, stop. I hear 4 phonemes, so I put up my 4 color tiles, and I say to my kids, what's the first phoneme in stop? S. How do I spell it? S. This is my leap into phonics. We have not done phonics until we add that letter, that grapheme. So we continue through and we get T, and if your kids don't hear that vowel phoneme, we're going to go they're going to be say O, and then P. Now, this is important because once we get to this point with our students, there's an important concept here to teach them because it prepares them for multisyllabic words. This is a 2-sound consonant blend, and you can break up a 2-sound consonant blend because they operate independently of each other. So when we get to multisyllabic words, we can be able to break that up. This is an important distinction between a digraph and a 2-sound blend because we don't want to be breaking up our digraphs, okay? So just a prerequisite. Now, let's try it with another word. I want everyone to say the word smash and stretch it with me. Smash. How many phonemes did we hear? 4. So we're going to put out 4 color tiles. And then again, we're going to connect each phoneme to its grapheme. So the first phoneme spelled with S, next phoneme spelled with M, and then we've got that and then that sh is that digraph. This is an important waypoint for our kids because when we can do a word like this and we can have a conversation where we can say, okay, what are the structures of this word? What do we see? Well, we know we have 4 phonemes and 4 graphemes. We have a closed syllable, we have a 2-sound consonant blend, and we have a digraph. If I can have these conversations with my kids, this is great news because then they are ready to jump into multisyllabic words. And not just 2-syllable words, but some complex multisyllabic words. So, trust me when I say, what we've just done is imperative to reading words like Wisconsin, transatlantic, and uninhabited. So let's apply this to multisyllabic words. All right, so before we get into multisyllabic words, I'm going to ask you if you have Post-it notes or if you have any kind of paper laying around that you can draw boxes on. I'm going to ask you to participate and do some things with some multisyllabic words in a moment, okay? So let's talk about multisyllabic words. Before beginning work with multisyllabic words, it's important to establish some prerequisite knowledge. You have to be able to begin with recognizing closed syllables, right? So remember, that's 1 vowel followed by 1 or more consonants. They have to know those short vowel phonemes cold. They have to be able to recognize digraphs and blends because you can break up a blend, but you can't break up a digraph. We want our students to know and recognize that every syllable has a vowel spelling. It's also important to read and have a comfort level with nonsense words like id, nick, eth, and viv, because many times those nonsense syllables combine to produce real words like vivid or ethnic. So finally, we want to be able to provide them with functional strategies for breaking words into decodable chunks. Let's try it. So I'm going to put a word on the board for my kids. And if I was with my kids, I would say, if you know this word, please don't say it. The last thing I want is for a child to shout out the word because everyone's brains shut off. So I'm going to ask a series of simple questions to help students see the key substructures that exist in this word. I'm going to say, how many vowels do you see? We see 2. Are they together or apart from each other? Well, they're apart from each other. If I see 2 vowels and they're apart from each other, meaning they're separated by consonants, that's a strong predictor that the word has 2 syllables. To represent these 2 syllables, I'm going to put down what we have. We call them syllaboards. You can use Post-it notes. You can use pieces of paper. It doesn't matter. And then these are little whiteboards that we have. So now I'm going to ask my kids to bring 1 vowel down to each board. And then I'm going to have them bring down their consonants and close each syllable. Okay, so they might do something like this. So now we're going to decode our first syllable, closed syllable, sub. Our next syllable, closed syllable, short vowel phoneme, tract. Put it together, subtract. So now there may be other ways to break it up, but I decode each piece and I bring it together. And we do something called touch and say. All right, so if you have Post-it notes or if you have pieces of paper, I'm just going to ask you to get those out so we can do some words together. Okay, everyone ready? Okay, so again, if you know this word, please don't say it. How many vowels do you see? Well, we see 2, right? Are they together or apart from each other? They're apart from each other. So how many syllables will you have? 2. So how many syllaboards or Post-it notes do you need? 2. So put them out, bring 1 vowel down to each board, and then I want you to bring down your consonants. I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay. So some of you might have done this. Okay, and if you didn't, don't worry about it. Don't go erasing anything. So how would I pronounce this first syllable? Splen, right? Why isn't it spleen? Because it's a closed syllable and it's a short vowel phoneme. Our next syllable, did, splen, did, splendid. But did anybody do this? It works. We still have 2 closed syllables. We have splend, still a closed syllable. I haven't changed that short vowel phoneme. Id is a closed syllable. It's 1 vowel followed by 1 or more consonants. Splend, id, splendid. Both get me to the correct pronunciation of the word. That's my goal here, right? Either one of these gets me to my end goal. So we call this a lose the rules approach. And ignore that page 26. I forgot to take that off when I made this. So just don't worry about that. This is for like part of a 6-hour presentation. So this is a lose the rules approach. We're going to say, if you know this word, please don't say it. So pretending this is our word up here, I would put it on the board and I said, if you know this word, please don't say it. Then I'm going to ask these questions. How many vowels do you see? Are they together or are they apart? And how many syllables will there be? And how many syllaboards do you need? And then from there, you're going to ask the students to put their syllaboards out, bring a vowel down to each board. And then because we're still at the beginning stages here, we're still in closed syllables, I'm going to ask them to bring down those consonants and close each syllable. So they might get something that looks like this. And then you might have to help kids adjust. That happens, but there's a series of questions that you would ask for that. And then you touch and say each syllable and then blend to read. So can, did, candid. Now, this is not the only way to do this. Could I have this D over here? Absolutely. There's still going to be 2 closed syllables and we're going to get to the word candid. Let's try this one. How many vowels, first of all, if you know this word, please don't say it. How many vowels do you see? 3. Are they together or apart from each other? They're apart. How many syllables will you have? 3. So how many syllaboards or Post-it notes do you need? 3. So we're going to put out 3 Post-it notes. I'm going to have you put down a vowel to each board, and then I'm going to have you bring down your consonants and close each syllable. And then we'll see what people get. Okay, so I'm wondering if anybody did this. Does it work? Do we have 3 closed syllables? Yeah. Short vowel phoneme, fan, tast, ick, fantastic. How about this? I still have 3 closed syllables. Fant, ass, tick, fantastic. But I'm willing to bet that most of you did this because we love our patterns and we love our CVC words. Fan, tast, tick, fantastic. So either one of those gets us to the word fantastic. All right, I'm going to show you a short video clip of a little boy, Andrew. Okay, so let me just close that. Bring Andrew over here. And you just let me know if there's any issue with the sound, okay?
Can you sit down, buddy, so I can see you?
Yeah, until I get my shoes not stuck.
Uh-oh, your shoes are stuck. Okay, here's Andrew's second word. He's going to decode. What do you do first?
I want to point out that Andrew is a kindergartner. So he's going to really demonstrate for you his depth of knowledge around closed syllables and his word to text skills on a multisyllabic word that he has not done before, okay?
Underline the vowels.
Good.
A, I.
Excellent. Then what do you do?
Write the vowels.
Okay.
Magic C.
Yeah, it was a magic C to make your A. Good job. And how many syllables are going to be in this word?
3.
Good. Now what do you do?
Write the consonants.
Good.
Actually, can I do 3?
Sure.
So Miss, so what, the name, she will be in front of me on 3.
Mm-hmm.
3 in a row. I'm doing my best handwriting.
I know, it looks lovely.
Ooh, 2 T's.
Okay, now go back to the first syllable. Put your finger into the vowel. And look to the right. Is it going to be open or closed?
Closed.
Can you show me closed? Good job. So is the A going to say A or A?
A.
Good. So sound out that first one.
And.
Good. Go to the second syllable. Is it going to be open or closed?
Closed.
How do you know?
Because there's a consonant.
Good. So can you sound out the second syllable?
Chaz.
Good.
Chaz.
Okay, go to the third syllable. Is it open or closed?
Closed.
How do you know?
Consonant.
After the
Vowel.
good. So sound out the third.
Tick. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Good job. That was fantastic, Andrew.
Oh, you said that word.
I know I did. Good job.
So let's go back to, okay. So let's think about Andrew and his depth of knowledge. When you think about what he has to know to be able to do that, and I also want to say that he is not like an excelling kindergartner. He is not at the top of his class. He is just able to use a functional strategy to get to this word. So think about his vocabulary there, understanding vowels and consonants, open and closed, and being able to touch and say and to blend. There's a lot going on there, but we want our kids to have this depth of knowledge at any age, right? We want them to be able to understand how to do this. Now, did his teacher teach him how to read the word fantastic? No, she taught him how to read a closed syllable. Because when he's able to read a closed syllable, he can read over half the syllables in our language. She teaches him the word fantastic, he gets 1 out of 1.6 million. Teaches him the strategy, Now she's really opened doors for him. She's giving him the skills and knowledge he needs to teach himself words. That's the power that we want to be able to provide for our students. Now, could Andrew have any problem doing the same thing with the word that you see before you on the screen? Could he do this one? Yeah, probably. He could access that same exact routine. That's really what we're after. So we want to give kids something that they can use to access any unknown word. So let's get out those Post-it notes again. And I'm going to go through this one. If you know this word, please don't say it. How many vowels do we see? 3. So we're going to take those 3. How many syllables will we have? Are they together or apart? They're apart. So how many syllables will there be? 3. So we're going to need 3 Post-it notes or 3 syllaboards. And we're going to bring a vowel down to each board, just like we've been doing. So go ahead and do that. And I want you to bring down your consonants and close each syllable. Take a moment to do that because there's multiple solutions to this word. So I'm going to trust that you probably have something that might look like this. Do we have 3 closed syllables here? Yeah, let's touch and say. We've got establish, establish. Some of you might have done this. Do we still have 3 closed syllables? Yeah. Est-ab-lish, establish. If you don't change the syllable type, you're not going to change the pronunciation of that vowel phoneme. That's where this flexibility lies. So let's talk about this minimalistic approach for a moment. We are not asking our students to memorize a whole bunch of complex syllable division rules. Rather, we're teaching them the skills and knowledge that can be quickly mastered or then rapidly generalized to other patterns. One of our primary targets is building up our students' sight word memories. When we show students how to look at and consider words, they develop strategies and skills that they need to rapidly build words into their sight word memories or their orthographic lexicon. Remember, our sight word memories are all the words that we can read effortlessly. Now, phonemic awareness is really key here. Robust phonemic awareness plays a vital part in this equation. Students need strong phonemic awareness to orthographically map words. This should be started in pre-K and kindergarten and continued through 2nd, 3rd, 4th, even 5th grade. It's essential to learning to read and spell in an alphabetic writing system like ours, and it plays a huge piece in building automaticity. So let's talk about this in terms of adolescence. A lot of adolescents need this type of instruction. Unfortunately, many leak into older grades without the skills and knowledge they need to fluently read at grade level text. Their underdeveloped decoding skills cause them to become frustrated readers. And they often say, sound it out is not a strategy. If you're familiar with Tim Shanahan's work, he once famously said, lots of times, kids in the upper elementary grades are struggling readers. Research suggests that the vast majority of these kids will require additional phonics. I might only be willing to invest a small amount of instructional time in phonics with on-level readers during those grade levels, but if I don't do it with the strugglers, they're screwed. And it's so true. And being part of this webinar hopefully is going to allow you to effectively intervene with struggling decoders that you encounter. And that takes me to my next point. It's also helpful to use well-structured, systematic lessons when you're teaching your kids. We can't jump around and just think we're going to close gaps with skills. It has to be systematic, direct instruction. All right, let's move on to another concept, the schwa. In the spectrum of things that we can teach about phonics and word structure, the schwa is right up there near the top. I think the schwa is almost as important to teach as a closed syllable. And as I was learning when I was a child, what I thought about the schwa was it was that upside down E in the dictionary when we used dictionaries back then, and I never really understood what it was, but now I do. I finally get it. So let's start our investigation of the schwa with this word. Now again, we're going to use our same strategy. If you know how to read this word, don't say it. We see 2 vowels, right? They're apart from each other, so we know it's probably going to have 2 syllables. We're going to use our boards. We do that strategy, bring our vowels down, bring our consonants down, and close each syllable. So if we decoded it using only our phonics knowledge, we would read it like this: seldom, seldom. Is that what we say? No, what do we say? Seldom, seldom. So what's happening is in this word, we hear a vowel letter making an unexpected sound. This O is not making its anticipated short vowel sound. It's flexing to something like the short U phoneme. Listen again, seldom. Got that sound. If a vowel is making a sound that we don't expect and it's flexing to something like short U or short I, that's the schwa. Consider this word. If we use our functional strategy, we can see it clearly has two closed syllables. We have two vowels apart from each other, and we get to this. But do we say bonnet? The baby wore a bonnet. No, what do we say? Bonnet, right? So again, we have another vowel letter that is making a sound that we don't expect. This E is flexing to something like the short I phoneme, bonnet. There's another schwa. So when a vowel does not make its anticipated short vowel phoneme, it's probably flexing to a schwa. So let's talk a little bit more about the schwa and why this is so important. The schwa is a lazy or reduced vowel phoneme. It has less energy than a typical vowel sound. This phonics feature is found primarily in multisyllabic words. And in fact, it's in most multisyllable words. Most multisyllabic words contain at least one schwa, and many multisyllabic words contain more than one schwa. It just so happens that the schwa is the most common phoneme in our English language. There are two common sounds for this schwa. The most common sound is as in seldom, and words like zebra, avoid, along. It's a lot like the short U phoneme, but it has less energy than that. So the schwa sound in each of those words, we hear that A flexing to this unexpected, slightly lazy, reduced vowel phoneme. Another common sound of the schwa is I. It's what we heard when we read the word bonnet. This sound happens in words like salad, helmet, or common. In each of these words, we hear that vowel phoneme flexing to this unexpected, slightly lazy, reduced phoneme, I. So for our discussion today, we're going to label these two phonemes. When we hear a word flexing to the sound, we're going to call it a schwa. When we hear it flexing to the I phoneme, we're going to call it a schwi. Okay, so we have schwas, but we have two of them. We have a schwa and a schwi. So let's do a simple exercise. We're going to try to find the schwa in some common words. So in each of these multisyllabic words, at least one vowel is flexing to the schwa. Let's start with the first word, ribbon. Do we hear a vowel that's not making a sound that we expect? Yeah, it's this O. We don't say ribbon, we say ribbon. So that is flexing to a schwa, but more precisely, it's flexing to that schwi sound. Let's go to the next word, S-E-V-E-N. Which of those vowel letters is flexing to a schwa? Think for a moment. It's that second E. We're not saying sev-en, we're saying seven. So we're flexing to that I sound, that schwi. How about the state name? Say that to yourself. Which of those vowels is changing its pronunciation to the schwa? So in this word, we have three syllables, and two of the vowels are flexing to a schwa. We don't say a lask a, we say a lask a. So we have two vowels here flexing to a schwa, which is a schwa, but more precisely, a schwa. So the next word is treason. I pronounce it treason, but I also think there's a common pronunciation of treason, depending on where you are, right? So treason, I say treason, some people say treason. So this is either the schwi or the schwa, but it's a schwa nonetheless. I feel like that's a tongue twister. So the next word, in this word, you say this one, I say conspire. So that O is flexing to the schwa, conspire. We don't say kinspire, and we don't say conspire as much as we say conspire. And this last one, this might have 3 common pronunciations depending on which region you're in or what mood you're in. You might say husband or husband, or depending on your level of irritation at the moment, you might even say husband. So this one, a little tricky. So the letter A in this word is the one that is considered flexing to the schwa. All right, so let's return now to our strategy and think about closed syllables and the schwa. So break out your Post-it notes, and we're going to do this one together. Ready? How many vowels? First of all, if you know this word, please don't say it. How many vowels do we see? We see 3. Are they together or apart from each other? They're apart from each other. So how many syllables will I have? 3. So how many Post-it notes do I need? 3. So let's put out 3 Post-it notes and bring a vowel down to each board. Then bring your consonants down and close each syllable. Because believe it or not, we're still in closed syllables. Okay, so you might have done something like this. Now, there's other ways to solve this one, but we're going to stick with this one for the moment. Now, when I decode these syllables as 3 closed syllables, telling me to read each vowel phoneme as a short vowel phoneme, I'm going to get con, sis, tent, but I don't really say consistent. So there's some adjustments necessary. So think about what vowels you want to reduce, or maybe 2, and read it quickly the way we say the word, and you're going to get to consistent, because most people will flex the first and the last. First one to a schwa, the second one to a schwi. So part of what is happening here is receptive language plays a big part. Our oral language is always ahead of where we are in our decoding and fluency. So if I read this word and I go consistent, that doesn't sound right. Let me try flexing. Consistent. Oh, I've heard that word before, consistent. So receptive vocabulary plays a big part in our ability to pronounce our words correctly. So let's talk a little bit more about the prevalence of the schwa. As I said before, some of this is really worth repeating. Most multisyllabic words contain a schwa. Many 3-syllable words contain 2 schwas. And when we examine these words, schwa is the most common phoneme in English. Now remember, to give you a visual, English has 44 phonemes. If all 44 phonemes were evenly distributed, meaning if we said short E as often as we said short I, each phoneme would account for about 2.25%. So all your vowels, all your consonants, and so on would each account for 2.25%. But that is not the case. What happens is this crazy little phoneme, the schwa, actually accounts for 12% of all the phonemes in spoken words. This means that 1 out of every 8 phonemes we say is a schwa. It is difficult to go half a sentence without saying the schwa. I think it's fascinating. We say the schwa a lot. Hence, there will be a t-shirt someday that says schwa happens. Okay, so just like we've done in the past, I'm going to ask you to read some words aloud. So when they come up on the screen, just wherever you are, say them out loud. Here we go. So it's likely that we all pronounce these words in a very similar way. Frippa, Briggle, Crippen. Were you accurate in those pronunciations? Were you automatic in those pronunciations? In each of these words, you flexed one of the vowels to a schwa. We flexed that A in Frippa to a schwa. We didn't say Frippe. We took our knowledge of words like villa, panda, and circa, and reapplied it to this word. And we did it automatically and effortlessly. Let's look at the next word. We flexed the A in Briggle to a schwa. We took our knowledge of words like dismal, dismissal, and electrical, and we applied them to this unknown word, Briggle. And again, we did it automatically and effortlessly. And our last word, in the E in Grippen, we flexed that to a schwa, taking our knowledge of words like seven, citizen, or written, and reapplied it to this word, again, automatically and effortlessly. When we learn about pronunciation patterns in English, like the schwa, and the common places where these patterns occur, it really helps to facilitate proper pronunciation of new unfamiliar words. And that's what we're doing when we teach our students about the schwa and the places that it occurs. So if we think about the importance of the schwa and where it happens, it's important because it's so prevalent to talk about where it happens. There's predictable places where it happens. Look at these combinations of O-N, E-T, and E-N. You can sort of put these together and go in your head and say, oh, I get a lazy vowel sound when I see that O-N, that E-T, or E-N. We don't say button, we say button. We don't say helmet, we say helmet, and so on. So these are very prevalent places where they happen. Again, think about, we did Alaska. A and A at the beginning and end of words is probably going to flex to a schwa. A and I in the middle of multisyllabic words will flex to a schwa. We don't say cat a strophic, we say cat a strophic. We don't say pres I, pres a, well, I don't know, president or I don't know. But anyway, it flexes to a schwa. If that was actually broken up with a long vowel phoneme, that I was by itself, it would be an open syllable. We wouldn't say president. We would flex it to a schwa, president. And then we have AL, EL, and IL at the end of words is going to flex to a schwa. And then this last one is actually a syllable type. It's the consonant LE syllable type that will flex to a schwa. So we have covered closed syllables and one alternative vowel phoneme, the schwa. So let's examine the types of words that students could read accurately with just this small amount of phonics knowledge, along with that functional strategy that we shared. Okay, here we go. Content area reading, these are all pulled from a math textbook. All of these words can be read successfully, just knowing closed syllables, the functional strategy, short vowels, and the schwa. Social studies, same thing. Geography, all of these words, and science. All we're doing here is losing the rules. Having the foundation and the understanding of a closed syllable, one additional vowel phoneme, the functional strategy, and our short vowels gives me access to all of these words. 53% of the syllables in our code are closed syllables. Let's move into our controlled syllables now. How am I doing on time?
Sorry. You have about 5 minutes before the Q&A would start, but feel free.
All right, I'm going to keep moving. All right, so let's talk about our controlled syllables. There are 3 and only 3 are controlled syllables. I shared them with you earlier. We have or, we have are, and we have The most common spelling for or is OR, like in the word storm. AR is the most common spelling for R, the phoneme R, like in the word sharp. And then there's this pesky This is the one that is the least predictable in spelling patterns. The phoneme is commonly spelled with ER, like in her or fern, IR, like in sir or shirt, and UR, like in churn or turn. But there are also less common spellings like EAR in the word learn. So very, very pesky, that spelling. So let's dive into the idea around R-controlled vowels. When a vowel is followed by the letter R, the R combines with the vowel to produce an advanced vowel phoneme. We often call this R-controlled. So if we think about a word like sharp, like we need a sharp knife to cut a tomato. Sharp has 3 phonemes, sh, R, our first phoneme, sh, spelled with SH, that digraph, our last phoneme, spelled with P. What's left is that R-controlled phoneme, spelled with AR. So when I say R-controlled, it can actually refer to 3 different things. It can refer to the category of a vowel phoneme, like that's an R-controlled phoneme. It can refer to a vowel spelling. So in this word, the AR is the vowel spelling, but it can also refer to a syllable type. So if it has an R-controlled phoneme, R-controlled grapheme, right? So this word has an R-controlled phoneme and an R-controlled vowel spelling. It's an R-controlled syllable type. So 3 things that it can refer to. Now let's see what this looks like with multisyllabic words. We're going to go back to our same simple strategy. So again, I say, if you know this word, please don't say it. How many vowels do we see? We see 2. Are they together or apart? This helps me to understand I'm going to have 2 syllables. And now, as I'm teaching the skill of R-controlled vowel spellings, I'm going to add a question. Do you see an R-controlled vowel spelling? Yes, that you are. So when I bring down my Post-it notes, I bring down the entire vowel spelling, not just the vowel. So now I'm going to ask them to bring down their consonants. And they might get something like this. Bird, N, burden. I have a R-controlled and I have a closed syllable. Now, do we say burden? No, what do we say? Burden. So I have to flex that as well to a schwa. Now, I can also do this. Burden, burden. Both are correct. Both get us to the correct pronunciation of the word burden. So that's just because when we think about vowel teams and R-controlled, there's no opening or closing syllables, so I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All right, so let's do this one. Here we go. Let your Post-it notes. I'm going to guide you through it. How many vowels do you see? 3. Are they together or apart? And do you see an R-controlled spelling? So how many syllables? We've got 3 syllables. We bring it down. We bring down consonants. And again, this is one way to solve this, right? Nocturnal. Do I say nocturnal? No, what do I say? Nocturnal. So what's happening here? We're flexing to that schwa. There's like 3 or 4 different ways to break this word up and still get to the correct pronunciation with no rules. Okay, this is a nonsense word. Okay, so you've never seen this word before. How many vowels do we see? Are they together or apart? And do you see an R-controlled vowel? So yes, we have 3. One of them is R-controlled. So how many syllables will I have? 3. We bring down our Post-it notes. We bring down our consonants. And we have R-controlled, closed, and closed. Persismus. Persismus. This is actually not a nonsense word, by the way. It's just not a high-frequency word. If you're a middle school teacher, and you have a 95-degree day and your kids just came back from PE, you're going to have a lot of persismus in your classroom because it means stinky armpits. So next time they come back, you can say, we got a lot of persismus here. And it's this exposure to less common words, this more sophisticated vocabulary, that really relates directly to children's vocabulary acquisition, which I said plays a huge part in being able to decode words correctly. The research suggests that better decoding leads to better vocabulary acquisition, right? Because if our kids aren't reading, they're not going to build their vocabularies. So rare words are those that go beyond that 8,500 most common words in the English language. So again, it's important for our students to be developing those strong decoding skills. They become those avid readers and they develop that vocabulary. Because vocabulary knowledge impacts all facets of academic performance: listening, comprehension, learning to decode, speaking, and writing. All important. All right, so this has been kind of an introduction to looking at multisyllabic words. We actually have free webinars that you can register for on our website at reallyGreatReading.com. What I took was a piece of our 6-hour presentation on developing readers, and you can go right to our website and register for those. And again, they are completely free, okay? So let's talk about good We're going to leave with a summary of what good readers do. They're good mappers. We know that good readers don't refer to a long list of syllabication rules. We saw that today. There are easier ways to teach than just teaching rules. Rules can clog up the working memory. We want to give them something that is easy to use. We also know that they don't mark up their words. Good readers use strategies, not rules. They apply simple functional strategies when they're going to tackle complex words. And good readers often orthographically map the words they encounter, and they're constantly pumping new words into their sight word memory for automatic, effortless retrieval. And there's really only one way to do that, and it's through that process of orthographic mapping, which requires phonemic proficiency and real insights into phoneme-graphing relationships. So very quickly, just a little background. I mean, I know I'm sitting here doing a presentation, but who am I? Really great reading has been around for 18 years. We've been studying the science of reading, connecting it to classroom practice, and our goal is really to bring practical strategies to teachers. We are an organization of teachers committed to understanding the science of reading, specifically the research about what goes on in students' brains as they learn to read, and then how to leverage that knowledge to impact classroom practice and student learning. So we just take that research, it's compelling, it's actionable, and it really can change lives. We have programs that are going to address the foundational literacy skills. I'm going to briefly touch on those. These are actually on a handout so that you can see what our programs are. You can actually click on the little QR code that's on there, and you can learn more about each one of our programs. All of our programs are designed to solidify word-level reading skills. That means they can pronounce the word, read the word, spell the word, and know its meaning, all done through about 15 to 20 minutes daily of instruction, along with some 30 minutes weekly of differentiation and practice. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to spend this hour with me. I know I went a few minutes over, but I'm going to open it up to any questions that you might have. And I'm going to hope that some of you schedule a meeting with me to learn more.